All right, this is a little bit of a pivot from the Middle East to Virginia, but that's where we go next here, where the former governor of Virginia, Bob McDonnell, and his wife, Maureen, they're awaiting sentencing after being found guilty on a host of charges this Thursday on federal corruption cases they were facing. Now, the McDonnells convicted of using gubernatorial office here for their basically personal piggy bank here. They were found guilty on most of the counts against them, authorities say. A businessman, John Williams, who was a star witness in the case, provided McDonald's with more than $177 grand in lavish gifts from everything from, I guess, underwriting their daughter's wedding here to financing both travel and other for the McDonald's. He gave Maureen, the wife here, more than $20,000 just for a shopping spree in New York City. Authorities say he also paid for vacations for the family, golf outings, bought the governor a Rolex. He also paid the catering bill, as I said, for the daughter's wedding. And he's also said to have given them more than 120 grand in loans. Now, we've seen this kind of story before. Closer to home, this guy, former Connecticut Governor John Rowland, on Wednesday marked day one of his conspiracy trial. This is his second rodeo in this one. He's accused of conspiring to use political consulting work for each of his two campaigns. He served time on federal corruption charges once before, authorities say. Rowland had state contractors doing work at his private home. Remember that shed? Don't forget about Florida lawmaker David Rivera, also a current congressional candidate accused of violating ethics laws, authorities say, used campaign donations to pay off his personal credit cards. Okay, let's take the two governors here and just take McDonnell, because I'm probably going to take a unpopular position. In no way do I condone what he did. Do I in any way feel any remorse or sadness that he's going away with his wife? Absolutely not. But I've seen this thing play out a little bit, maybe not of governors, but when, and you guys can speak to this a little bit, when people come from the public sector and they didn't make a pile before they went into politics, but yet they've gone all the way to the State House, and they're surrounded not only by lobbyists who are flying in on private jets and feting them to the best clubs, the best restaurants, and everything else. Oftentimes you got a spouse or the elected himself who says, you know what, I'm tired of rubbing nickels here, that I can't even, cater my daughter's wedding. I'll ask for a favor or not. It won't really be a quid pro quo. I kind of see how these things happen. And again, I'm not condoning them, and he should know better, and that's not part of the job, but I kind of see how this happens. I mean, Rowland, he went down for 20 grand for a shed in his backyard. I thought it cost more than that to bring down a governor, but that's all that it took. Again, no sympathy for these guys, but the public doesn't see an effect that it's not like everybody's Mike Bloomberg, right?
That's correct. And a good number of them are not. But you have to ascribe it, I think, to stupidity and ego. And there's
That's the word, ego.
It is ego. What happens with these guys, and it's true, by the way, of local officials, too.
Yeah.
You get into office, and now everybody's deferring to you. Everybody's deferring to you. They need favors. They need this. They need to see you. And you become a bit of a king of sorts. You can't be that way. It's called public service. And the fact of the matter is, if you go into it expecting to get money, in my opinion, you're a loser already. Because you don't. That's not where it happens. It's when you get out, you hope to make money, which many of us never did. But of course, that's another story entirely.
For another night, yeah.
But it's stupidity and ego on a lot of these people. And I mean stupidity to the point of, I've got it all now. What's the difference?
Okay, this was black and white, what he did. I mean, the idea that he thought he could have taken a Rolex and he could have flown off to Ireland to play golf, and all the rest. He had to know better. However, are there shades of gray where even if guys might know better, they say, this trip, I'll call it, research or business recruitment, but come on. I mean, is it tricky?
It is tricky. It gets very tricky. I've been invited many times to, for example, go to football games, football games in the special suites. I'd love to do that as a county executive. It's simple. I'm just going to a game, a couple of beers. What could I? No. No, there's a value to it. There's a point to it in terms of gaining access and perhaps influence, and I would have loved to do it. But you can get into the really shady areas of, do you accept even coffee? Do you go out, And this, of course, is one of the big issues, I think, for New York State politics, is we really haven't got a good handle in New York State even. But look at the governor who went hiking down someplace
South
and
Carolina.
suddenly disappeared
to
for
find his eventual soulmate. You don't have to name names.
Yeah.
But can you put a face on? Is it usually the spouse who's sick of being, seeing everybody that they're surrounded with? All of a sudden they're traveling in different circles. And they're like, I've been wearing the same dress for the last 5 events here. I got to go every night here to these chicken dinners, and I can't even afford to put something on my back.
First of all, I totally agree with everything that you said at the beginning of this segment. I think that's exactly right. I think people that are in public office are get used to being around very, very wealthy people. They go to fundraisers and they're in beautiful homes, and the owner of the homes is kissing their backsides. And they think, well, I'm entitled to this. It just kind of seeps into the psyche. I don't know if it's the spouses, but I'm sure that some of the spouses get wide eyes as well. I mean, I remember going to meet with one elected official at a hotel in New York, and I won't name who it was, at a hotel, and I walked in, and he had this a duplex suite. I mean, just this absolute duplex suite. I said, "This is amazing." They said, "Yeah, we just checked in for a hotel room, and they gave me the upgrade." I mean, shades of gray.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Richard, I have to disagree.
Okay.
I have to disagree. The shades of gray is when they get caught. That's the only shades of gray. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out this man is giving me a Rolex watch. Why? Right. This man who was made $5 billion, all of a sudden, before I ran for office, he never heard of me. And now that I'm the mayor of New York, he wants to be my friend. And if it's not ego-driven, why would somebody who's made $5 billion in the private sector want to be friends with you? It's part of what you can get away with. This soap opera that the McDonnell family went through in Virginia, they got caught. The wife had her hand in the cookie jar. The husband had his hand in the cookie jar. They didn't have any money. And that businessman that became the star witness, would he interact with them under any normal circumstance?
No.
If McDonnell wasn't the governor?
The perversity, Andrew, of it is, if the feds didn't get involved, there is an argument that what they did in Virginia was not actually illegal under state law. I don't want to complicate it with the facts of the story. And again, I am not on the McDonnell bandwagon or protectorates here. They deserve everything they get. But just so people know how complicated different state laws are as it relates to ethics, it's not as black and white like all of us think it is. I agree, morality, it should be pretty clear, Dominic, but this is more complicated, I think.
I don't think so.
It's not that complicated, and I find myself actually getting a little angry as I'm sitting here because so many people watching the show tonight live, let's say, modestly or below modestly, and they live in Midtown Manhattan right next to a place that's got a penthouse with, $7 or $8 figure price tag. I live in Westchester County. I'm a stone's throw away from people who make exponentially more than I make. You're not supposed to cheat your way to try to, because you're rubbing elbows with wealthy people, all of a sudden you're going to skirt the law and cheat your way and get money that you're not supposed to. You're supposed to be a public servant. And what happened to this notion of being a man or a woman of the people? How can you sell yourself as being a man or woman of the people if, on the other hand, you're saying, well, but I got to be able to rub elbows with these people who are giving me money or who are influential people? It's nonsense. It's garbage. It's just straight up theft.
Thank you,
and
Andrew.
analyzing it and trying to figure out why it happens, it's just, they're criminals.
Well,
they're criminals who are misusing the public trust and the power of their office.
Period, you're right. I'll only say this. I've taken the unpopular position before that part of the problems that we have in Albany have been what was originally supposed to be a part-time job has become largely a full-time job. And then we expect magically that on the 5th day when they're not in Albany, that they're going to have a full-time job that people are going to want to pay them for, i.e. a law firm, for great legal counsel? Please. Right. They're paying them for access and connections. So either we don't be half pregnant about this and we say, we're going to pay you a real full-time and you can't have a second job, like in Congress, right? For whatever we think of them, they work for Congress. They're not getting side deals on the side, okay?
Richard, you give them a full-time salary. they're still going to find a way to earn extra money.
I'm glad Richard's not here because he'd be throwing something.
No offense to the county executive. I'm a huge fan. But Andrew's right. Let's be honest about this. You don't run for mayor, let's say of New York City, and win as a regular person. You've got to have a tremendous ego. Trust me when I tell you, to even be in this game. I've been in the room, for example, with Bloomberg, private conversations where this guy is talking about they were going to do a campaign commercial. They didn't want to use one of his private helicopters. They wanted to rent 2 other helicopters. Bloomberg scolded his aide on the phone and said, "Why are you bothering me with such a minor detail of renting 2 helicopters?"
But
But
he's in a different universe.
Yeah, okay, he's a different universe.
In the world.
But Richard, the point is this. When you're the mayor of New York and you can put Donald Trump in his place, that's all ego driven. And then I'm not saying Trump is corrupt or anything like that. But these guys, hey, listen, Governor, like you and your wife take this trip. You know before you bought that plane that you can't afford to get on that private jet and go somewhere. As Andrew said, it's corruption, plain and simple.
Well, I was given advice when I first came into office. Don't do anything that you will be uncomfortable reading on the front page of the New York Times.
Exactly.
And you know what? It seems to me that works pretty well, unless you're just really dumb.
And that's a good way to end.
Exactly
show.
Exactly right.
Well, we got a lot more New York politics to get into here, including gubernatorial candidates, everyone but the governor himself here, faced off in a one-on-one debate here. And the question is, we're going to break down a little math. What could Teachout do in a primary that might actually change the dynamics of what happens between now and November? We'll talk about that and whether or not it's smart, forget about morally, but politically, for Andrew Cuomo to say, I'm just not playing. We'll be back with that and more after this.